Roxanne, Roxanne, I wanna be your man. A simple enough line from a classic song. Who would have thought that this would be the beginning of such a storied tale in hip-hop? As I'm writing this, it's Women's History Month, so let's take it back to a historic moment in hip-hop, especially for women. That being not only one of the first rap beefs ever, but also one of the first and youngest MCs to ever drop a hit record. This is the beef that essentially set off dissing on wax and showed that it can actually be marketable. Before we get too deep though, make sure to click those thumbs up and subscribe buttons to help the channel grow. Now, you saw the title, you know the drill. Let's get into it. In the early 1980s, the Brooklyn group Untouchable Force Organization, or UTFO for short, formed. They were originally called UFO, but had to change their name as a rock band already existed with that name. The quartet, composed of Kango Kid, EMD, Dr. Ice, and Mix Master Ice, released a single in 1984 titled Hanging Out, which had the song Roxanne, Roxanne as the B-side, which became their highest charting song and was the kickoff point for what we call the Roxanne Wars. Roxanne, Roxanne was all about a woman who each member of the group tries a different approach at getting her attention but fails. Funny enough, the third rapper, Dr. Ice, gets a phone number from her, but she stands him up. According to Roxanne Shante, Marley Marl, who lived in the building across from her in the Queensbridge projects, had approached her about recording a response to Roxanne, Roxanne.
What happened was, Marley Marl, who lived right across from me in another building, like directly across from me, he said, well, listen, you know what, Shanté, I heard that you can rhyme. And I said, yeah, I can. I said, but look, right now I'm doing the laundry, because my mom was like obsessed with this laundry thing. He said, look, it's only gonna take you 2 minutes, just come up here, I want you to hear this beat. Did you hear this song before? So then I heard that boom, 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 Roxanne, Roxanne. I said, okay, so now what? He said, let me hear you rhyme.
The reason for this being that Mr. Magic had played UTFO's song on his radio show, which was one of the only hip-hop radio shows at the time. But when UTFO were scheduled to appear on his show, they didn't show up. That led to Marley Marl, who was his assistant and DJ on the radio show, enlisting Roxanne to respond, and also led to her joining the Juice Crew. The response song to Roxanne, Roxanne was aptly named Roxanne's Revenge, and the single was a hit which wound up selling roughly 250,000 records.
Selling approximately 250,000 copies.
They initially used the beat from Roxanne, Roxanne on the song, but this prompted Select Records, a label that UTFO had signed to send a cease and desist to Pop Art Records, which is the label that they released Roxanne's Revenge on, and that required them to use a different beat for subsequent pressings of the song. Roxanne's Revenge is a scathing diss track by Roxanne Shante, who was about 14 years old at the time, and one of the youngest female rappers on wax. Shanté responds to UTFO's song Roxanne, Roxanne, taking on the role of the Roxanne that rejected their advances, and proceeds to respond to each of the UTFO members that rap on the track: Kango Kid, the educated rapper, and Dr. Ice. For example, she refers to Kango Kid as a dude named after a hat, and claims that Dr. Ice doesn't know how to operate.
I said I met these 3 guys, and you know it's true. Let me tell you and explain them all to you. I met this dude with the name of a hat. I didn't even walk away, I didn't give him no rap.
She also attacks their rapping skills and claims herself as the better MC. It's kind of funny. Just imagine making a song about a fictional chick that rejects you, then getting dissed on wax by someone pretending to be that same chick, and then the song becomes a hit. Things didn't stop there though. Following the Roxanne's Revenge track and the positive reception that it received, UTFO decided to respond on wax.
So hey, that's not fair. We created this, and she's selling more now. We're like, okay, we need to hurry up and crush this. And so we wanted to come out with what we would refer to as the real Roxanne.
They found a woman to play the part of the real Roxanne, that being Elise Jack, who recorded the song The Real Roxanne for them. However, she was soon replaced by Adelaida Martinez, who took on the mantle of the real Roxanne from then on. Like Shanté, she takes on the persona of Roxanne from the original song, explaining her side of why she rejected each one of them. It basically does the same thing that Roxanne's Revenge does, which is diss UTFO. I guess the group wanted to capitalize off all the attention that the previous records had brought and didn't mind getting dissed again, as long as they were the ones behind putting out the song. This is the other most well-known response track regarding the whole Roxanne Wars situation. This beef is known as having the most tracks going back and forth, as according to Roxanne Shante, there were over 55 different response records.
Everywhere I went, there was somebody answering the Roxanne answer. And when I'm telling you that there was over 55 response records, we're talking records that were actually played. You'll never have another Roxanne phenomenon again.
Given the sheer amount of tracks and lack of information available regarding some, especially the lesser known ones, this video will not be going over every single song. Some of them were responses to Shanté, and some were responses to UTFO, while others were responses to the various other artists who got involved over the course of the beef. This is basically a proxy war that branched off into other people seeing an opportunity to get involved and drop a record, whether to show off their skills, get their 15 minutes of fame, or sell some records. I can't think of another beef that involved so many artists that essentially had nothing to do with one another. In response to The Real Roxanne, Shanté released the songs Queen of Rocks and Bite This. On Queen of Rocks, Roxanne tells a story about making Roxanne's revenge with Marley Marl, as well as dealing with pop art records and other things going on around the time. On Bite This, Shanté raps about biters, whether it's beats or rhymes. The song basically goes out to all those who were copying Shanté. Considering how many response records came out around this time, I don't blame her if she felt copied. Also around this time, the beef between Boogie Down Productions and the Juice Crew, which Shanté was a part of, was starting up as well. On top of that, the beef between LL Cool J and MC Shan, a fellow member of the Juice Crew, was also live. Both of these beefs I've covered previously on this channel, so check those videos out as well for details on those situations. Another rapper who responded to Shanté at the time was fellow female MC Sparky D. Like UTFO, Sparky is from Brooklyn and took it upon herself to respond to Shanté for the Roxanne's Revenge track with her own response titled Sparky's Turn, in parentheses, Roxanne you're through, taking aim at Shanté in defense of UTFO. She makes a reference to Shanté's young age with lines like, "It's good you stood him up or they'd be in jail cause you sound like you're fresh out of junior high school," as well as claims that without UTFO, she wouldn't be famous. After this, Shanté and Sparky D released a song together titled Round 1, capitalizing on the success of their individual records. Round 1 had Sparky D and Shanté trading verses back and forth, dissing one another, essentially battle rapping on wax. Until then, it was something that was pretty much only done live. Once again, a breakthrough in hip-hop. On the track, Sparky D disses Roxanne for having braces, being young, having small breasts, and being petite. She even talks about Roxanne having an STD. Some pretty brutal words to go at a 15-year-old, but this is battle rap after all. Aiming at someone's insecurities is bound to happen. Roxanne shoots back at Sparky with similar insults like calling her fat, a hoe, and propping up her own rap skills compared to Sparky's. In the Roxanne film, the beef between Shanté and Sparky was touched on briefly. One scene has them recording the song in particular, actually.
A right guard, a wrong turn. This is something that you must learn because you took it too far. And yeah, that's right. Now it's my turn, yes, to get on the mic to prove to you that I'm the best. When I say my rhymes and prove they are fresh.
The beef between these two probably wasn't anything deep and comes across as more of a record label business situation, considering the fact that they even recorded a song together dissing one another. Now I will cover a few of the other tracks regarding this beef. As I said earlier, there were quite a lot of them. One such song being Roxanne's Doctor by Dr. Fresh. Once again, another rapper with the Doctor title. As you can probably guess, this guy claims himself to be Roxanne's doctor, specifically her psychologist. He starts rapping about sitting her down in his office and talking to her, and continues with the doctor stuff for the first verse, but it quickly spins off for the rest of the song into him dissing her for the typical things, once again, like her age and her skills with men. It's kind of odd how most of these people are a bit older than her and keep dissing her regarding her sex life, but once again, this is rap beefs, so there's not too many things that are off limits, I guess. Shock value goes very far when it comes to dissing on wax. Another track that came out of this is The Parent of Roxanne by rappers Gigolo Tony and Lacey Lace, who rap from the perspective of Roxanne's father and mother respectively, as you could probably tell by the title of the song. They go at UTFO for dissing them on the Roxanne track, directly responding to lines like calling Roxanne's father a fairy, calling their kids Tom and Jerry, and calling her mother Mary. It's a pretty good response. I like the creativity behind it and the fact that they respond to the original song. I guess this is basically rapping roleplay. This is also interesting for the fact that these two aren't even New York rappers. Apparently they're from the South, along with some of the other artists that have released responses in this beef. So I guess you could say that this is also one of the first beefs that really traveled outside of the New York area. Yet another Roxanne response that came out was I'm Little Roxanne by Tanganyika, who portrays herself as a younger version of Roxanne. She makes claims that she's 7 years old, and she responds to UTFO for dissing her. It's another funny response, and if she really was only 7, then that's the youngest rapper I've ever heard on a track. Another track that came out around this time was Yo My Little Sister, in parentheses, Roxanne's Brothers, by the group Crush Groove, with a C, not a K like the film released that same year about Russell Simmons and Def Jam. On this song, once again, they're doing family roleplay. They take on the role of Roxanne's brothers who respond on her behalf. They diss not only UTFO, but Sparky and Dr. Fresh as well. The family roleplay isn't even done yet though. We covered the parents and brothers, but there's also a track, Rappin' Roxy, by DW and the Party Crew, featuring the titular Roxy taking on the role of Roxanne's sister and once again dissing UTFO and Sparky D for dissing Roxanne. I find something about 80s rap diss tracks to be so different from more recent ones. Probably the lack of extreme threats to one another. They often were a bit more focused on dissing each other for their rapping ability and the like. I still think it's kind of funny, all this back and forth over a fictional character. And speaking of funny, one of the other diss tracks and most humorous ones in this back and forth would have to be Roxanne's a Man by Ralph Roll. As you could probably guess, this one is about Roxanne being a man. Simple enough. The song starts off with two guys talking, with one of them telling the other that Roxanne is a man. It continues then with a story about how Roxanne was a guy, but then got into trouble, went to jail, was violated, and then came out as a brand new person, so to speak. He goes on to talk about the change in his dress and hairstyle, like putting on skin-tight jeans, makeup, and wigs. It's some pretty typical 80s humor, which I find pretty funny, but I'm sure it's something a lot of people wouldn't find as humorous more recently. During the song, he also disses UTFO as well once again and tells them that they're stupid for trying to holler at a man that they think is a woman. One of the other tracks to come from this beef is The Final Word, No More Roxanne, in parentheses, please, by the East Coast Crew, which might be self-explanatory, but the song is all about how they're tired of the Roxanne beef and don't want any more diss tracks sent back and forth between rappers about Roxanne. It's a catchy track with a call in return telling the community, no more Roxanne. One line in particular is pretty funny, basically saying that all the Roxanne responses sound the same, and they don't even bother to change the name. A pretty good track overall, and probably one of my favorites that I've heard from the bunch. Of course, there's plenty more response tracks regarding this, as I've said there's over 50 according to Roxanne Shante herself, and this was mostly all over the course of a year or so. One of the first rap beefs ever on wax, and it was a historic time for hip-hop and women in hip-hop especially, as although it might have been a proxy beef of sorts started between UTFO and DG Magic and Marley Marl, women like Sparky D, both the first and second real Roxanne, and of course Shanté herself were the main ones the eyes were on in this conflict and sold plenty of records because of it as well. Business aside, this paved the way for many other rap beefs we would go on to see in hip-hop like MC Lyte vs. Antoinette, which also happened in the 80s, as well as Lil' Kim vs. Foxy Brown, which started in the 90s and continued on for decades, both of which I've also covered on this channel. So I'd like to say thanks to all the hip-hop pioneers. Without them, this genre wouldn't have grown to be what it is. I'm glad I'm even able to cover so many beefs, and we've gotten so much music from them. Now, what do you think about this beef? What track is your favorite from it? Is it one of the ones I mentioned, or another one? Leave a comment in the comment section below, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.